You're watching TVNB, your window on New Brunswick.
Hello, I'm Carolyn Cole, and I'd like to welcome you to TVNB's Culture Counts, an inside glimpse of the arts and entertainment beat in St. John. On today's show, we're going to feature sign making, a progressive cultural dinner, and a behind-the-scenes look at Imperial Theatre. But first off, some poetry read by Marjorie Pay and friends.
Raymond stumbled into the house, white as a ghost. "I think you better call 911, he sputtered. Cora's mind raced when she remembered that Raymond was intent on burning some rubbish in their backyard.
Marjorie Pay will now read her poem, Poverty.
They came knocking at the church office door, 1 or 2, but usually 3 or even 4, eyes downcast and mumbling, ashamed in their need. I go to the benevolent box and pull out a bill, so small I am somewhat ashamed. I pray God every day, assessing their needs. Where do they go? How do they fill in the hours when pockets are empty and there is no welcoming fire? They wander the streets, turned away from the malls, waiting in line for a free bowl of soup or for clothes on their back. None too soon darkness falls and blessed sleep comes, with luck in a hostel in the poor part of town. The day is over, don't rush another dawn, is the cry from their hearts. It's too hard to go on.
Gary Flanagan will now read his poem, Still Searching.
Still searching. With each passing second I consider my best before. The dances all seem that much shorter, and the summers a little less mystical. However, the melody is still ringing, and youth still flavors my every rendezvous, and I'm still capable of finding magic in a boring Saturday night at home.
C.S. Graves will now read his poem, In Defense of Free Verse.
In defense of free verse. You're putting in meaning? Well, don't waste your time. They simply won't like it if it doesn't rhyme. Stanzas and meter can all go to hell. Is free verse not carefully crafted as well? I fully concur, but I don't write the laws. You have to comply for the public's applause. I will not abandon this style that I like. Tell, what would the public want me to write? Things about girls, flowers and such. It's things meretricious that they like so much. Then I must abandon the public's applause. And if you thought I was going to end this poem in a conventional fashion, too bad.
Gary Flanagan will now read his poem, Jukebox.
Jukebox. Picture this: a swirling snowfall of Oscar de la Renta and crinoline, awash under a heady mixture of cologne and taffeta. A mere ball casts a temperate kaleidoscope of puppy love and desperation on the gymnasium wall. From the loudspeaker emanates the glorious din of Johnny Mathis, escalating the glimmer of love in teenaged eyes to epic proportions. In the corner stands the wallflower set, up to their knees in premature desperation and visions of a dance with the grad class Juliet. Outside, post-war dust still blows around the disciples of Henry Ford. A bunch of ragtag goons engage in a switchblade serenade, then ponder the complexities of Cheryl Del Vecchio's inability to put out. Their V8 four-barrel screams more, more, more as the staccato riffs of Chuck Berry adds glimmer to their black leather jackets, and the night melts into the morning. Soon, the interior mélange of music and revelry becomes a distant echo, and the dust of this night gets locked in a yearbook, only to be consulted when the glory of yesterday becomes the monotony of today.
C.S. Graves will now read his short story, I Don't Need No Permit.
This next piece, unfortunately, is based on a true story. It's entitled, I Don't Need No Permit. Raymond stumbled into the house, white as a ghost. "I think you better call 911, he sputtered. Cora's mind raced when she remembered that Raymond was intent on burning some rubbish in their backyard. She recalled warning him that he might need city authorization and perhaps even supervision to attempt the risky business of starting a fire in an area by trees, tall grass, and other flammable things like the neighbors' houses. "I don't need no permit," she remembered him grumbling as he poured petrol on a heap of twigs. Cora ran to the window as fast as she could in her flattened slippers. There in the backyard was the towering inferno, engulfing the forest regions of their backyard, evaporating gas and climbing a telephone pole even as it spread in the wind, black smoke obscuring the sky. Horrified, she shuffled back to the nearest telephone and called the fire department, assuming the blaze hadn't cut the line. A few minutes later, the chartreuse trucks arrived at the hellish site. Perhaps my grandfather Raymond had considered blaming the incident on a Dutchman named Maurice, but he actually fessed up to the angry fireman, who gave him heavy and lengthy lectures and warnings about this kind of haphazard pyromania. Strangely enough, he was not fined or jailed. Well, if all goes well with Raymond, I hope that I'll never have to write a sequel to this.
Maurice Aubin will now read his poem, The Lighthouse.
The lighthouse. Flash of light reflected on water every 5 seconds, constant. Piercing, revealing secrets of darkness every 5 seconds, constant. Bringing to light wonders of shadow every 5 seconds, constant. Where can we hide misdeeds and sorrows from the eye of God, reflected on water every 5 seconds, constant, eternal.
C.S. Graves will now read his nonfiction piece, Action Figures.
Action figures. When we were young, there was little we liked more than playing with our action figures, or figures as we pronounced it, much criticized by my mother. My cousin and I spent hours on end moving the little plastic characters around, a cacophony of exotic sound effects bursting out of us like it was talking in tongues day at Calvary Temple. We had near a sixth sense that told us if an adult was approaching the room, and we automatically fell dead silent, looks of contempt on our faces aimed at the intruder. As soon as they left, the flood of neumes and bangs and args resumed with great enthusiasm. Our hands shot forth from the direction of the tiny action figure weapons, indicating the path of the laser beam, missile, bullet, or what have you, to its intended target, who, of course, would only become slightly tired by this deadly fire and continue on with the other characters for several more hours in this marathon of fantastical warfare. We had no sense of logic in this realm of ours. If Captain Power was hanging over the edge of a cliff, it was no problem for him to spring up and over the evil Skeletor and send him down the chasm with a well-placed kick to the back while still in midair. Often numerous instant replays were done of particularly dramatic moments, as though we were little cinematographers trying for the right take. I can remember so many brands of action figures that we delighted ourselves with. Star Wars was a long-time favorite, maybe partially because of the special touches in the packaging, like the colorful photograph of the featured character standing in front of some weird color texture, or the illustration on the back that showed every single Star Wars figure with the little caption commanding us to, quote, collect them all. Darth Vader was always my favorite, though, and while talking as him, I would attempt to emulate his creepy breathing noises between sentences with a whoo purr. Another line was G.I. Joe, which brought us all the excitement of semi-realistic modern combat. In retrospect, though, the good guys seemed awfully motley a crew for an elite military fighting force. Every single figure had his own uniform or gimmick. Many of them were allowed to drag along their useless pets. It also caused a great deal of confusion that there was no actual guy named G.I. Joe in this new batch. I think the consensus among kids at the time was that the bad guys, the terrorist organization known as Cobra, were much cooler looking. There was also the Transformers, stiff and flexible robot characters that turned into vehicles or machines or animals of some kind. Everyone bought into them big time, and the Transformers craze remains the stuff of legend even today. But perhaps my all-time favorite, despite the fact that these toys had no Saturday morning cartoons to advertise them, were the Micronauts. There were many kinds of Micronaut, the standard little silver-headed, transparent guys with colored bodies and tennis shoes, the Pharaoh guy who came in his own sarcophagus, the black and white figures with magnetically interchangeable limbs, their black and white horses, the exotic-looking insect and pterodactyl characters, and a whole slew of shiny dart-firing vehicles we would have sold our souls for. And I hear say many people nowadays sell these toys for big bucks, and that people make a mint by unloading their old hoard stashed away in their basements. Not me, though. I got too many childhood memories attached to these little plastic pieces of joy we call action figures. Besides, my cousin and I crack them out once in a while so that we can temporarily abandon our maturity all over again.
And now Pamela Stevens, Rosalind, and I are going to talk about a very special event that's coming up. It's the 5th annual Spring Soirée Printanière. Stay tuned.
For an appetizer. And I think we forgot to mention that there'll be a soup at your British
Oh,
Club.
yes, that's right. Beer soup.
Yeah.